I got a very interesting psychology study from SciPost.
Is this the one that you didn't think we should do on the show?
Yeah, well, yes and no. There was another one that we definitely won't do on the show, but this one I was like, this is for turn me on, but it also kind of fits for Sick Boy. And
is it health related?
I mean, it's a psychological study, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to a degree. It's just here. I'll read you the title. Psychology researchers are taking a serious look at cum shots.
See, I'm very interested in.
Okay, well, all right, good game here. Why do you think psychologists are interested in? And for people who don't know, a cum shot is the act in pornography where typically a male is ejaculating
with velocity
somewhere in space. In a pornography video.
I know. I have a good guess.
Yeah. Okay. Why do you think psychologists are looking into the cum shot?
I immediately think of the James Webb Space Telescope.
That's immediately where my head went to.
Wow.
Because
wow.
And the reason why is because I recently saw a post of I don't think this came from James Webb, but it was a NASA Instagram post that was a photo of Saturn backlit by the sun.
Oh, I saw this.
And you could see
cool.
the
rings.
Oh, cool. And they were like
just
sort of glowing.
It was all shadow.
And yeah, so the planet was all shadow, but the rings were sort of like glowing.
Oh, I want to see this.
They
That's cool.
used these different filters on the image to bring out different colors in the rings, and they were doing it to assess the composition of the rings. And so like they could look at it and say like, oh, this is like 20%.
Whoa, is this it? This here?
Yes.
Wow, what a really cool image.
And as you keep talking, the association with cum shots is getting clearer and clearer.
Yeah. So,
are you serious? Because I'm not here yet.
You don't hear it. You don't see the. Oh, wow.
No.
So I mean, Taylor, you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
I am.
But to elaborate for the listeners or viewers over on YouTube, I'm guessing that they are trying to understand the composition of the cum, the seminal fluids. To determine
Ryan, this is psychology.
This is psychology.
So, but continue.
Because I'm wondering if they think that our mental health could influence the velocity in which our seminal fluids shoot from the tips of our penis, and if that's affected by our mental health. So, like put it this way, like you eat asparagus, and mean,
it's not that. It is dumb, but it's not that crazy.
so I
could see it from SciPost.
So like say that you like eat asparagus, and your pee smells a certain way, right?
Right.
So like I'm wondering if they're like, hey, I wonder, because they're like they want to research cool shit that comes out of your dick, and they're thinking like, well, we're psychologists, so we have to find a different angle. What if our angle was like, I wonder if your mental health changes the composition of your cum, in particular affecting the velocity in which it leaves your dick and the cum shottiness of it.
I would guess that it has something to do.
Well, hold on. No. Go ahead, Taylor.
I would say on a more serious note, serious as I could possibly be, given the context of what we are currently discussing, I would say that it might have something to do with like the psychology of pleasure as it relates to like different sexual like acts.
Not quite. But you're definitely a little bit closer than the James Webb Telescope thing.
That was an analogy, you guys.
Most modern pornography depicts scenes of external ejaculation onto another person's face or body, commonly known as the cum shot
or the money shot,
which has raised questions about why this particular act is appealing to viewers. Now, some have proposed that external ejaculation is rooted in men's desire to dominate or demean women. But new research published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior, so a very legitimate study, provides evidence against this theory. So a lot of people are like, the reason you're doing it is to demean the subject that you're blowing your load on.
Yeah, I would vehemently disagree with that.
So the study found that both men and women viewed images of external ejaculation more positively when they were accompanied by facial expressions indicating pleasure. Additionally, men's judgments of such images were unrelated to their levels of psychopathy personality traits. So, but how? So how did we get here? How did researchers like decide we want to dive into this? This is really interesting. So, quote: I have been interested in the perception of external ejaculations in pornography since the late to mid 1990s. When I worked on the book, Warrior.
I was going to say.
when I worked on the book Warrior Lovers with Don Simons, where we discussed sex differences in erotica and sexual fantasy, explained the study's author, Catherine Salmon, a professor of psychology at the University of Redlands.
Salmon.
Salmon.
Probably salmon.
I mean,
I'm just fucking with you.
It doesn't. I mean, it's spelt salmon. You know, it could
it's a light pink.
Salmon. She said, "quote: Some academics and lay people have suggested that the goal of pornography is to degrade women, and have used the external ejaculation as an example of such. However, I didn't find this convincing, as there are a lot of external ejaculations in gay porn without any women around. In addition, I had read an article in Playboy by James Peterson, and he made an interesting point. Quote: what makes ejaculating on the outside degrading while ejaculating inside sacred? Masturbating guys ejaculate on their own bodies all the time, and no one says, oh God, I just degraded myself. Which I think is a really interesting point. It's like, you know, if you're not trying to make a baby, yet you ejaculate inside of someone, that seems to be kind of fun. Like that seems to be kind of the norm, you know, like that's okay. No one really looks at that and goes, "Oh, you motherfucker, how dare you?"
And the argument for it being degrading would also have to be there would also have to be quite a through line of females that don't like it. That it's like I feel degraded. Like there has to be a reciprocal feeling of degradation.
I'm sure there's lots of people that don't like it, and probably because the thought is, well, this I've been told or taught that this is degrading, so like I don't like to feel that way, so don't come on my belly or like whatever, right?
But if a guy wants to and a girl wants to, then that relationship can't exist in that scenario.
Well, really. I think that's the key point here is like, if you're communicating about it and the person desires you to do that thing, then how could it possibly be degrading? Because you shouldn't be doing anything to anybody without consent to do that anyway in the first place. So
regardless of whether it's coming on you or, going in for a kiss.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, shouldn't you be having that conversation before you come on anybody? Like, hey, I want to come on your tits. Like, is that
Jesus Christ, Brian? This is a CBC podcast, dude. Chill. Oh fuck.
Yeah, I forgot. But like, is that cool, right? Like, you ask that question before you do it. So if the person,
if you get a no,
right, then
you don't have permission,
right?
Yeah.
I usually try to have that conversation in a little bit more of like a sexy tone, that rather than like, is that cool kind of tone. It's more of like it's kind of wrapped in like a little bit more.
Like,
No.
Say how you say it.
This is making me
say how you would say it.
No.
This is an important conversation about consent.
No, you can hear it.
This is making me feel weird. She said, so Jessica Heyman and I decided to conduct a study assessing what factors influence people's perceptions of images containing external ejaculations to either a male or a female face. One of our predictions being that the signs of the recipient of the facial enjoying the sexual activities would predict participants having a more positive or less negative, depending on your perspective, view of the images. Dude, whenever I read these things, I just all I think about is like, what a fucking hilarious job. You know, it's like when we spoke to the woman who's like, I forget her name, but she's from Montreal, and her whole line of study right now is like focusing on sex in space.
Yes, right.
It's like, what a cool thing to do. Like these two, they're just like, all right, let's compile a bunch of videos of cum shots and just show it to people and watch the reactions. Like, that's hilarious. That's so fun.
I'm curious. This is out of my own curiosity, because I'm not like super familiar with the dom sub sort of dynamic in relationships. But if I ask my partner to come on my face, and I'm asking them to do that, are they dominating me, or am I asking for that? Therefore, that is more of a dominant trait in that situation.
No, not necessarily. I think,
or is that neither? Is it just that like a neutral?
I think it's kind of neutral. I mean, I suppose it depends on, are you asking them to do that
because I feel degraded,
and then yeah, sure, like how,
and
like
because you like it,
like is that an act that makes you feel dominated? Then if it is, then sure,
right. It's
right?
a context is
right, because
here.
But like you could feel dominant in that situation just by asking for that and then receiving that too, right?
Yeah, well, that's what plays into like dom sub play. It's like the act of asking for things to get a certain feeling. Now, if you said, you wanted her to have a cum shot on your face, or like I guess a squirt shot on your face, and then like call you a little ninny and spit in your eye and slap you,
right?
That might be a little bit more dominant,
clear cut.
Yeah. I mean, that personally isn't what I would want, but I could see how it would.
Never say never.
It would be great for some people.
You never know, what path you'll end up taking.
I'm very interested in this stuff.
She said,
I like talking about it.
She said, we also were interested in seeing whether scoring high on dark triad traits would predict more positive views on the images.
What's a dark triad trait?
So the dark triad is we did the dark triad test once, the Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the recipient's effect, or maybe even more positive when the recipient effect was negative. So the researchers used Amazon Mechanical Turk crowdsourcing platform to recruit a sample of 201 women and 196 men who lived in the U.S. The participants ranged in age from 19 to 77 years, very broad age range. Approximately 44% identified as heterosexual, 36% identified as bisexual, and 20% identified as homosexual. In the study, the participants viewed and rated a series of 18 explicit images on a 7-point scale, which ranged from very negative to very positive. The images depicted either a man or a woman receiving a cum shot and displaying either a positive, negative, or neutral expression. The participants also completed assessments of religiosity, dark triad personality traits, disgust sensitivity, self-perceived mate value, and sociosexuality, which means openness to casual sex. Women, on average, reported fairly negative perceptions of the images, while men, on the average, reported having some neutral perceptions. Both male and female participants viewed the images less negatively when a woman displayed a positive expression compared to when the woman displayed a negative expression, which kind of makes sense, which indicates that the enjoyment of viewing external ejaculation is not about men enjoying degrading women, the researchers said. Quote, for males, the strongest predictor of more positive / less negative reactions to the images was that the recipient was of their preferred sex, females or heterosexual males and males for homosexual males, and was displaying positive effect in response to the cum shot. Salmon told SciPost.
See, this is it's interesting because when we started this conversation, it's like, I go, oh, I don't think that it could be this dominant degrading thing, but then the world is a big, wide, open ocean with a lot of different fish in it. And when I'm saying that from the perspective of like, well, that's because I'm not doing that for that reason, and I know that in my heart of hearts, and like that doesn't, and like we talked about, it's like, well, like that doesn't happen unless it's like a mutually agreed upon conclusion. So, but it's interesting that when they run the research, it seems like that is on average negative to females and neutral to males. But I guess it all comes out in what the reaction is to the person that's receiving.
I thought this was interesting because I've never been a fan of the cum shot. The thing I've always been a fan of is coming into my hand and then flinging it at the wall and pretending I'm a Spider-Man. Females' overall views of the images were more negatively. Females overall viewed the images more negatively, but the responses were predicted by a wider range of variables, including short-term mating orientation than the males. They said, quote, there is no evidence that males or females scoring higher in psychopathy had more positive perceptions of the images, regardless of effect, again, suggesting that degrading women is not the main focus for consumers. Interestingly, but perhaps not surprisingly, narcissistic males had more positive views, while narcissistic females had more negative views. As expected, those who reported being more sensitive to disgust were also less likely to have positive perceptions of the images. But surprisingly, however, the researchers found that more religious women tended to have more positive perceptions of the images.
That's interesting.
Quote, however, this was quite a small effect and might be, I don't know this word, spurious? Spurious. Spurious.
With it.
S-P-U-R-I-O-U-S. Spurious. Not being what it purports to be. False or fake. Spurious.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, thought that was really interesting.
It is really,
kind of
it
fun.
is really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Do you think that for the religious, like if the data is true behind that, do you think that that is because like the sort of like forbidden fruit idea that like, you know, sex before marriage, premarital sex is frowned upon, and therefore sex in general is sort of seen with this like negative, from this negative viewpoint or lens.
Yeah.
And then so like, you know, then that in the person's mind leads them to be more sort of curious in what they would explore, like in terms of their fantasies and
could
things
be.
like that.
Yeah,
It's a bit of a stretch to guess that maybe, but
could be.
What I think is really interesting about this is that these are the things that people fucking are curious about and like talk about, at least in maybe not in a scientific way, but like you think about your life and all the sexual experiences that you've had, and you've probably had a myriad of different experiences in terms of like what people are into. But because you are into something and they might not be, then that ends up not occurring. And you could walk away from a sexual experience kind of scratching your head going, wow, how could I be so into that and that person not be into that at all? How could they have that view on that when mine is so positive on whatever it is? And how that varies so much from person to person. And this is basically taking that in one aspect of that, or one experience that could occur in a sexual encounter, and going, let's fucking figure it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your point, like that's why it's so important to talk about these things, even though it sounds funny. Because like the conversation that we're really having here is about consent and whether or not like talking about what you're interested in with your partner first. Otherwise, how are you ever supposed to know? Like if you don't talk about these things with your partner, how do you have a fulfilling sexual encounter with that person if you don't know, one, what they're into, what they would like, and two, you know, where the boundaries are in terms of what you can and can't do. It's crazy that, I mean, like, I think of like 19, 20-year-old me trying to navigate these experiences and not knowing how to have these types of conversations. Like there were so many unfulfilling sexual experiences that I had because you don't know. Yeah. Like you err on the side of caution and don't go in.
And then you're trying to figure it out in like the last 15 seconds. And you're like, where should it happen?
And you're even afraid to ask like, what would you like?
Yeah.
You know?
Although I will say, like on a positive note to that, Bridie and I just had a conversation yesterday with a woman who teaches gender and sexuality at a university in Alabama. Gender and sexuality studies from a perspective of like gender and sexuality within pop culture. And one of the things we were talking about was how, especially after the Me Too movement, like since 2017, there's been a massive shift in the way that consent culture is being like hammered home heavily through like in universities. And so I feel like, you know, we have our buddy Nathan, 19 years old. He's coming up in a time where the conversation surrounding consent is happening way more often all around him compared to what the conversations were like when we were 18 and 19. Which
I don't even think there. I don't think there really was a conversation.
No.
There wasn't a conversation with us, like an educational conversation about why that was.
Yeah,
important.
like literally the universities are like holding seminars. I mean, Bridie and I, we spoke at college at Conestoga a couple of weeks ago about that exact thing. It was like we talked about consent for like an hour to a whole auditorium full of students. So it's nice. It's nice to hear that. Like Gen Z, there's like this sexual revolution happening with Gen Z surrounding, gender, the new gender, sexuality, all that stuff. So,
because I feel like before, when we were growing up, it was more of like, you should just know. Like you should just be able to figure out what's cool and what's not. And for some people, you do just know because you just have that compass that's built in, but that is not the case for everybody.
No.
And you need to have something that is educational so that everybody can be on the same page.
I would push back on like the compass thing, because I think, and maybe this is what you mean, but like you sort of like err on the side of caution and play in a space that's safe with that person, but like you don't actually know, like it's not a fulfilling.
Right, you're right. It has drawbacks on both. It has drawbacks on both sides.
Which, like, the interesting thing that I think about consent is that it's been sort of labeled as this like unsexy thing. And I mean, not now so much, but when we were first starting to have these conversations, it was like, oh, it's so hard to have that conversation because like it can ruin the mood or things like that. But I think that that's entirely untrue, because it actually helps you get to a better place during your, sexual experience. Than takes away from it, because you find out lays the groundwork
for like a more fulfilling experience.
Here's a fun story. I don't know how much this kind of relates to the podcast, but I loved it too much not to put it in. This is coming from Hannah Banana over on Discord. Thank you, Hannah. If you want to join the Discord, you can click the link in the bio, and you can help us produce the podcast by giving us content like this. Florida woman. I always love a good Florida woman story.
I follow an account called Florida Man. It's the guy who does white people humor does an account called Florida Man, and he just does Florida Man stuff.
Florida woman sues Kraft for $5 million over Velveeta pasta prep time. So the appeal of microwave meals is their efficiency, but they are really made as quickly as are they really made as quickly as the companies claim? And according to one Florida woman, the answer is nope. The signature yellow packaging for the Velveeta shells and cheese microwavable shell pasta claims the dish is ready in 3.5 minutes. On November 18th, Florida resident Amanda Ramirez filed a $5 million class action lawsuit against Kraft Heinz, which owns Velveeta, alleging it takes much longer to fully prepare the microwavable pasta. Ramirez says her lawyers claim the advertising pointed on the single-serve meal is false and misleading. They contended, even though it takes 3.5 minutes to microwave the pasta, this time does not account for the other steps listed in the preparation instructions.
This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Opening the package, pouring the water in.
No,
seriously. The protected pasta eater must also add water before microwaving, then the cheese sauce, and stir it to combine.
Dude, how does this? I mean, not that this will get to court. I don't
know. This could sink Kraft.
No, this will just get tossed out so fast. But like, this is so funny. It's so funny that a law firm is like, yeah, fuck off, whatever. Okay, sure, maybe.
It's like I could understand if if you put the hot water in the thing and then Velveeta's like, you put the hot water in and then you have this lid that you put on it. You put that in the microwave, then you pull the lid off and then you stir. And then, she pulls the lid off, and as she does, there was air trapped in, and she pulled it off and it exploded hot Velveeta all over her eyes. Then I'm like, okay, I'm sold. You just burnt your face.
Dude, I could solve this case I'm gonna solve this case for Kraft Heinz right now. They're gonna go, we said cook time.
Yeah,
and that's it. And so that's all they're gonna say. And then
no, Taylor, they didn't. They said preparation time.
But
never mind.
But what is like when you file a lawsuit? Doesn't there have to be like some sort of harm that's being done to you?
Yeah, dude. The harm is time is money, and so and truly, so there's a premium that they're charging for these quick meals, and really, she's paying $5 for this Velveeta.
So the collection
she should be paying $3. Because there's an extra, it should be exact. She should be paying $3.50. She's being charged $5, and really it says it. So it should say ready in 5 minutes because it's $5. It should be 5 minutes. It's saying ready in 3.5 minutes. It takes her 5 minutes. She's spending $2 and her time.
So what I'm hearing,
collective minute and a half from all the purchasers.
That's right. So which adds up to $5 million over the span of a year.
But so it's a class action. So she's not entitled to $5 million in compensation.
Well, I mean, whatever. It's like it's $5 million split between 20 people. So like it really, this is.
Guys, I got a check from Microsoft for $120 a few weeks ago.
Why?
Because I joined a class action lawsuit about overpriced software from the mid 90s.
No,
I legitimately filled out my name and email on a website, and I got a $120 check like a year later.
I feel like there's a racket here where like it's kind of like the people that just like sign up for like medical testing.
Do you have mesothelioma?
People that sign up for like medical testing where they're like, yeah, sure, I'll test for this new chemo drug. I don't have cancer, but I'll test for it. I'll get like, $120. I'll test for like, a new vaccine. I'll test for that. I'll make like $150. Like that's just my job. Like if your job was just like, I'm gonna class action lawsuit to make bank. I feel like there's something.
You won't make bank though, because like
but you could make like $1,000 a year.
You could if you hired some sort of AI assistant to like just fill out every class action lawsuit form.
Now we're talking
100%.
Yeah.
The lawsuit takes a particular offense to the 5th step listed in the Velveeta package, which claims the cheese sauce will thicken upon standing. Now, this time to thicken is apparently also not included in the 3.5 minutes. I'm telling you guys, this is fucking crazy. The label does not state the product takes 3.5 minutes to cook in the microwave, which would be true. The court's documents allege. Kraft Heinz responded publicly to the lawsuit in a brief statement, and they said, "You're right. We're sorry, and we are shutting down. We are firing everyone that works at the company." And they said, "We're aware of this frivolous lawsuit and will strongly defend against the allegations in the complaint."
That's crazy though, because it's not. I mean, it is frivolous. I wouldn't say it's a bad word to describe it.
Certainly frivolous.
However,
it might be the definition of frivolous.
It's not. The lawsuit isn't wrong in the sense that it does take much longer to prepare the meal than what they're advertising.
The lawsuit seeks to represent more than 100 individuals. So like they could be sitting on 50 grand.
They could be sitting on some good money.
We could join it.
On the topic of like the people versus big corporations. You guys got to watch the Pepsi doc.
Yes.
The Where's My Jet doc.
Yeah. Right.
Fun. Very fun.
It seems like a bit of like a Tiger King style.
I didn't watch Tiger King. It's not stupid.
I didn't either, dude. I feel like we're a rare breed.
I mean, I was away. I was fucking stuck in Galapagos when the pandemic hit, when everyone was watching it. And then by the time I got home, I was like, everybody had watched it. And I felt like I knew what happened because it was every meme on every page. And I just
didn't want to watch fucking a bunch of ding dongs, and like and animal abuse. Like I was just like, what? Why are we glorifying
the Pepsi docuseries is not that.
It's much cooler.
It's much cooler, and it's much more like, yo, you legitimately.
It's like real life video.
Big corporate mistake.
It's like real life video game.
Like they just didn't put a disclaimer on the ad for the jet.
Yeah,
and it was, and they sort of proved that was more or less intentional.
Basically, the whole thing was like you buy Pepsi, you get points or something, and you get enough points, you can buy a fucking like Harrier jet.
Jump jet. Yeah.
and then one kid was like,
I got it.
I figured out that a jet is worth $32 million, and I can purchase that jet for $700,000 through buying Pepsi points.
Yeah.
And a total loophole in Pepsi's ad, which they didn't put any disclaimers around and said this. Anyway, so then the 4-part series is about basically like the lawsuit that ensues.
Yeah.
And there's like,
did the kid make bank?
I don't want to tell you.
Don't ruin it. Yeah.
Scientists finally know why people get more colds and flu in the winter. This is kind of interesting. You know, the whole thing, like, I mean, it's an old wives tale, but like,
don't go outside.
Don't go outside without a scarf or else you get a cold.
Is that a wives' tale?
Don't go outside with your hair wet.
100% it's a wives' tale. And also, so many people still believe that. Like the amount of times I've heard people say like, "Oh, if your hair is wet and you go out in the cold, you're gonna."
Dude, I'm googling.
No, like you don't get a virus from being cold.
No. But there is something to the cold weather and getting viruses.
It might make you more susceptible to it.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Nope. No. The wetness of your hair.
No, not the wetness. I mean, being cold. Like Like
that's what it is.
Well,
Yes.
that's what I was
Yes.
gonna say. But if you go outside without a jacket on, you get cold. Then your body is trying to regulate.
No, but it has
its
nothing to do
temperature.
with that. It has
And
nothing to do with the temperature of your.
I assumed that it was legitimately because you were spending energy to regulate your body temperature, which therefore wore down your immune system, which then made you susceptible to getting sick.
I mean, it isn't that. I mean, it's kind of close.
That's my bro science.
So here it is. A chill in the air. There's a chill in the air, and you know what that means. It's time for cold and flu season. When it seems everyone you know is suddenly sneezing, sniffing, or worse, it's almost as if those pesky cold and flu germs whirl in with the first blast of winter weather.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Because we all huddle inside in the winter.
Nope.
Damn it.
Yet germs are present year round. Just think back to your last summer cold. Why do people get more colds and flus now? Now COVID-19 when it's chilly outside. In what researchers are calling a scientific breakthrough, scientists behind a new study may have found the biological reason why we get more respiratory illnesses in the winter. And it turns out the cold air itself damages the immune response occurring in the nose. So it's the cilia in your nose that responds to the coldness, and essentially the cilia can't work properly. And so that's the thing that's making you more susceptible to colds.
So it's like not filtering the germs in the same way that you.
Yeah.
So like when I have those snotty sneezes,
Yes.
I don't have as many of those in the winter when my cilias aren't doing their job to
That's
like
right.
blast that shit out.
Yeah. So, quote, this is the first time that we have
Your summer snot is like everyone's winter
Jesus,
snot.
dude. It's
You're
crazy.
Ew,
snotty
guys.
all year round.
This is the first time that we have a biologic molecular explanation regarding one factor of our innate immune response that appears to be limited by colder temperatures, said rhinologist Dr. Zara Patel, a professor of otolaryngology.
I'm not sure. Actually. I don't know.
Larynx,
Laryngology.
otolaryngology. Yeah. There's no, you don't hit the G. It's a silent, the G is silent. And she's also a head and neck surgeon. In fact, reducing the temperature inside the nose by as little as 9 degrees Fahrenheit and 5 degrees Celsius kills nearly 50% of the billions of viruses and bacteria fighting cells in the nostrils, according to the study. Cold air is associated with increased viral infection because you've essentially lost half of your immunity just by that small drop in temperature, said the rhinologist Dr. Benjamin Bleer, director of otolaryngology, transitional research of the Massachusetts Eye and Ear, and associate professor at Harvard Medical School in Boston.
Guys, I felt this happening. This would have been in the summer-ish time. I trimmed my nose hair.
Me too, yeah.
And I was like,
Bad
and
idea.
for the first time in a while,
It's important.
and my nose was getting so dry and the air felt so cold in my nose. It was so uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep for like 3 days.
But you
and
got to
I'm like,
do
oh my
it though,
God.
right?
Well, I mean, no, you
just pull out the ones that are peeking out the end.
If you get these ones right at the
Yeah.
tip, I think you're okay. And it's like, I could be wrong because they're there for a reason. But I mean, it says here, a respiratory virus or bacteria invades the nose, the main point of entry into the body. Immediately, the front of the nose detects the germ well before the back of the nose is aware of the intruder. At that point, cells lining the nose immediately begin creating billions of simple copies of themselves called extracellular vesicles, or EVs. EVs can't divide like cells can, but they are like little mini versions of cells specifically designed to go and kill these viruses. EVs act as decoys, so now when you inhale a virus, the virus sticks to these decoys instead of sticking to the cells.
And then you blast them out.
Those mini-me's are then expelled by the cells into nasal mucus, snot, where they stop invading germs before they can get to their destinations and multiply. This is one of, if not the only part of the immune system that leaves your body to go fight the bacteria and viruses before they actually go into your body.
So this is why you should blow your nose a lot when you're
sick, totally.
You're blowing those germs right out.
Blowing them out. Once created and dispersed out into the nasal secretions, the billions of EVs then start to swarm the marauding germs. It's like if you kicked a hornet's nest. What happens? You might see a few hornets flying around, but when you kick it, all of a sudden, they all fly out of the nest and attack before an animal can get into the nest itself, he says. That's the way the body mops up these inhaled viruses so they can never get into the cell in the first place.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Don't kick hornets' nests.
Oh, dude.
Don't do that.
Don't.
No,
That's how that kid died in that movie.
My girl.
Yeah. When under attack, the nose increases production of EVs by 160%. They found out in this study, which is fucking crazy.
I can't hear EV without thinking about electric vehicles.
Of course not, yeah.
There were additional differences. EVs had many more receptors on their surface than original cells, thus boosting the virus stopping ability of the billions of EVs in the nose. Quote,
supercharged.
Quote, just imagine receptors as little arms that are sticking out, trying to grab onto the viral particles as you breathe them in. And we found each vesicle has up to 20 times more receptors on the surface, making them super sticky. Cells in the body also contain a viral killer called microRNA, which attack invading germs. Yet EVs in the nose contain 13 times more macroRNA sequences than normal cells.
Okay, though, but we're not saying
again, they're finding all this out in this study. Like,
they're not necessarily.
We didn't know this shit a year ago.
Right.
It's your nose hair doesn't necessarily matter then because it's these cells, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure your hair follicles play a role.
I think your hair is detecting it.
That's
your hair
right.
is detecting the temperature.
That's right. And your hair is also detecting the invasion before the shit in the back. The EVs are like.
So in this case,
we're so fucking dumb.
In this case,
no doubt.
Does it? You know, like when you go outside and it's really cold and you breathe in through your nose and your nose hairs, you can feel them like frozen.
That's what it felt like in the summer when I shaved my fucking nose.
So that feeling is like you now know you're fucked, right? Because in that case,
well,
it's not working
because you have to inhale a virus still.
I know, but you know that the door's open.
Yeah.
Now
we do.
You gotta be extra.
We only know this now from
washing.
This.
Yeah, you gotta wash your hands extra hard though.
So they said that again, what they did to conduct this study was they had participants. They studied participants that were exposed to 15 minutes of 40-degree Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius temperatures, and then measured the conditions inside the nasal cavities. So what they said was, what we found is that when you're exposed to cold air, the temperature in your nose can drop by as much as 9 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's enough to essentially knock out all of those immune advantages that the nose has.
Why are scientists using Fahrenheit?
This is a study coming out of the States. Yeah.
I know, but they're scientists. They're using metric system in Celsius.
In fact, that little bit of coldness in the tip of the nose was enough to take out nearly 42% of the EVs out of the fight. Similarly, if you have almost half the amount of those killer microRNAs inside each vesicle, and you can have up to 70% drop in the number of receptors on each vesicle, making them much less sticky. They also say you don't have to wear a nose sock. As it turns out, the pandemic gave us exactly what we need to fight off chilly air and keep our nose immunity high. Not only do masks protect you from the direct inhalation of viruses, but it's also like wearing a sweater on your nose, he said.
That was one of like the things that I liked about masks in the winter when everyone was wearing them.
Exactly. The warmer you can keep the inside environment of your nose, the better the innate immune defense mechanisms will be able to work.
I mean, they'll probably get a better response if they tell people to like wear a balaclava or something.
Dude, you know what I'm going to do?
Just from like a social psychology standpoint.
I'm going to get one of those glove warming pads and just stitch it onto the inside of my N95. And then my nose will be hot.
I feel like that might end up hurting you.
Yeah, but my nose would be hot and it would boost.
You could just buy those new Dyson air purifying headphones.
Yeah, right. I wonder if those come with like a warm air filter.
Yeah. Because you're not supposed to put that shit against your skin, right? But
the hot paws.
The hot paws things. Those aren't supposed to touch your skin. I'm pretty sure.
I don't care.
Have you been?
I think they do in your gloves.
Dude, I fucking put them right on my taint.
Wow. Is that why no hair grows around your butthole?
No, I can do it because there's so much hair there.
Oh.
And so the hair just protects the skin.
Oh, so it's actually not against your skin. Right. Okay.
But but I don't put it on my butthole. If I put it on my taint's hairier than my butthole.
Oh, yep. Same.
All right, let's wrap this up with one last story. This is very exciting because I've heard about this long before it made the news. A good friend of mine is actually working on this project. It's coming out of the IWK. And Discord Patreon member, Jenna McGee, also past guest on the podcast, they brought this to my attention. It's now in the news. I'm going to try to get my homie on the show to talk about this because it's really fucking cool. A new virtual reality game at the IWK teaches kids to safely drive power wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It is so neat. So a team at the IWK's Rehabilitation Center hopes that it has come up with an innovative way to help patients navigate the world in power wheelchairs by having them learn driving skills through virtual reality games. Dr. Jordan Chirico, the project leader, has spent 4 years working on Halifax-based Mars VR Lab to create the software to train his patients while keeping them entertained. It's been really exciting, he said. I don't think any of us would have imagined being where we are now when we started this out. Chirico first became interested in virtual reality and its applications in rehabilitation therapy during his medical training. A few years ago, he mentioned to his colleagues that he wanted to explore VR as a tool with his patients, seeing it as an emerging area for research. He said that by luck, someone mentioned the Mars VR Lab. At the same time, there was a local business that was really keen to use their skills in software development, virtual reality, and project management to look at how we can leverage that to help people. Our developers really put together just a fantastic world to be exploring. The results of the game set in a futuristic robot-filled world. The kids have to navigate through a number of fun challenges that they're actually designed to teach them the skills to use their power chairs. Chirico's patients, who were experienced wheelchair users, have been testing the game through its development, giving advice along the way. Quote, the feedback was pretty consistent in that they see this as a tool that can really support power wheelchair training, he said. Chirico sees two key advantages with the software. First, it creates a safe space for kids to learn how to use expensive equipment. He said, quote, when we're doing power wheelchair training in the real world, we've got people around you that are trying to help you and support, he said. We've got a very expensive piece of equipment in the ballpark of about $30,000 plus walls, other infrastructure that get damaged or injured. They're learning early and intermediate skills in a virtual environment where it's safe, it's easily accessible, it's fun, and it's engaging. The other benefit is for those who live far from the IWK or other rehabilitation facilities. Chirico said the technology can set up at home for training purposes. The person can also come back later for testing to see if they are ready to go out in the community and in a power wheelchair. The program's still in its research phase, but Chirico says it should be ready to be shared with other rehabilitation centers by February. And when I was talking to my friend who's working on this, he was explaining it to me where like they've built out in this VR world, like a whole sort of arena. And like the goal is like, you have to take your power wheelchair and you have to get to the top of this sort of like mountain, and you're navigating like the trails, and there's like obstacles and you're trying to get around them, and you got to like get to like the goal point, like some ring.
I want to play.
I know it sounds so fun. But also like what a great way to, because again, IWK, it's a children's hospital here in Halifax. So like this is for young children who are maybe, being put in a power wheelchair for the very first time. Maybe a child who has like cerebral palsy, and, they've been using canes, walking canes, or like aids like that. They haven't, they haven't been to a stage in the progression of their disease where they need a power wheelchair. All of a sudden things degrade. They can't move the way that they typically would. Now they have to use a power wheelchair, which is basically you're driving a vehicle, so it's like giving a 5-year-old a fucking vehicle to drive around. When I was just hanging with my nephew the other night, and all he wants to do, he's like 3. I walk in, as soon as I walk in, he's like, Jamie, you want to play Xbox? And I'm like, dude, yes. And we go to play Xbox, and his favorite game is called, it's like Wrecked or something like that. And it's like a demolition derby game that I bought him for Christmas like a year ago. And I sit to play with him, and he has to drive a car. He's like 4. I think maybe he's 4 now. He has to drive a car in this video game to like, and the goal is to smash other cars. So it's like, he doesn't have to be careful. Dude, he sucks. He's so bad at the game. And I'm like, he's so bad that what I do is I go, all right, cool, dude. Let's play together. There is no playing together. It's a one-player game. So I go, let's play together. I turn on the other controller and I let him hold it. And then he uses the controller that's not set up to anything. And then I'm doing the driving and I'm slamming into shit. And I make him look like he's crushing the game. Now you take little fucking Austin, who can't drive for shit in this video game, and you put him in a power wheelchair.
Oh yeah,
and just
chaos.
Be like, oh, it would be chaos. It would be, you know, there's no spatial awareness, dude. Watching this kid drive a fucking. I also bought him a little electric car,
remote control car.
Remote control car, which goes very fast. Like if that thing hits you in your ankles, you're out for a year. Dude, it's so dangerous. You just can't let him do it.
All you need to do is get him a Need for Speed game where there are consequences to fucking up. Because like,
there are consequences.
I would argue that when I started driving a car, a lot of those skills were already, the foundation for them was already
when you were
there. 16. Because no, I know, but like
actually you started driving when you were like 12.
But that's right. But think about the amount of people that are just really nervous drivers, and they just never got comfortable with driving, which could be a bunch of different factors.
Austin is not this,
but I would say
he's overconfident.
I would argue that that playing video games like racing games, things like Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, whatever, where like obviously you don't need to be careful because there's no real life consequences, but there's game consequences where you lose or whatever, or you do shitty, and that allows you, especially I had the setup,
steering wheel
set up when I was like young with like Gran Turismo or whatever the game was for Xbox, but and that makes you that like prepares you at least in some way, not in the same level as like a VR would, because it's so immersive.
It's so immersive, yeah.
But the thing that I think is really cool is that I immediately think of like the recreational use of it, and one thing that I've been noticing with VR gaining popularity is that there's now like VR esports leagues where there's competitive VR games, but the thing that's different with competitive VR esports versus typical esports is that accessibility is now an additional issue in ways that it hasn't been for other esports games. And what I mean by that is that your body's the controller. And so there's no opportunity for people with, who are wheelchair users less opportunity for them to play competitive esports.
Yeah.
But what if they made this simulator a type of competitive game where, I could use it and you could use it and we could all play in a way where it was fun for everybody.
like power wheelchair hockey.
Yeah. But I think of a game that was really popular, Rocket League.
Yeah.
Which is driving a car and you're in an arena chasing it's basically like car soccer.
Yeah, dude, Austin would suck at that game so bad.
Yeah, I bet he would. But if he did VR and he had like a joystick and was steering around like a power chair, that would be fucking cool.
It'd be cool.
That would be a cool game that I would want to play.
Yeah.
Too,
and there's lots of VR that doesn't necessarily need like full body movement.
No, but like that's the goal.
Games.
But
I know it is.
But that's
goal.
like the goal of VR is like how can we make your entire body available,
which is fucking hilarious
reality.
Because you and I play VR a lot, and we play Demio, which is basically just playing a board game in VR.
Yeah,
like I'm just really sitting like with the worst posture the whole time. Like my gut, I just get fatter. Just like I'm just got out. Like
I have sore neck and shoulders after I play. I'm like trying to tilt the board up. So
you know what's really interesting about Austin though? Even though he sucks balls at this driving game, you throw on AHL 22, dude. He's fucking great.
Hey man, can't be good.
One timers.
Everyone's good at something.
Slap shot from the point. He's like getting goals. He has offsides turned off, whatever. But like,
it's a pretty.
He's pretty good.
It's a pretty crucial rule.
Folks, hope you enjoyed that. We are coming up to the holidays. Happy holidays to everyone who celebrates holidays.
Who likes time off?
I believe we're
got some.
Maybe we just hit Hanukkah, or Hanukkah's like just around the corner. I think we might be. I think it might be here. So happy Hanukkah if that's your jam. Christmas coming up soon. We're probably gonna, as we get closer to Christmas, we're probably gonna take just about a week where we're gonna put up some throwback episodes as we take a break for the holidays. But we will be back next week with a Feel Good Friday episode before that happens. So in the meantime, if you enjoyed this episode, if you want to support the podcast, like I said earlier, come join the Discord. It's very fun. Lots of engaging conversations. Fucking hilarious community over there. We love each and every one of you who have joined. So thank you. And if you want to support the podcast further, you can leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, or you can rate the podcast on your Spotify mobile app.
Yeah, one of the things I love about Discord too is that sometimes when we have guests on the show and when they join the Discord, it's really cool to have them in, because
everyone's like, hey!
You'll get to ask them questions or comment on their
person
episodes.
That we heard on the episode.
It's fun.
If you want to let us know anything, what's on your mind, let us know at letters@sickboypodcast.com. And if you want to be a guest on our show, go to sickboypodcast.com/contact and fill out the guest form.
We would like to give a huge thank you and shout out to Jeff Lonis, who is a person that we couldn't live without. We absolutely love him. And Rich O'Coin, thanks for the theme music. You're the best as well.
That is it for this week.
I'm Brian.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jeremy, and this is Sick Boy.